The crystal stemware clinked as Eleanor Matthews raised her glass, her perfectly manicured fingers gripping it just a bit too tightly. The candlelight caught the enormous diamonds on her hand. A reminder, as if anyone needed one, of the Matthews family's wealth and status. "To my son," she declared, her voice carrying across the private dining room at La Cirque, "who carries forward our family's proud legacy," her eyes fixed on me, sharp as daggers. "Despite certain complications. My name is Sarah Matthews, though according to my mother-in-law, I'll never truly be a Matthews. After 5 years of marriage to her son James, I'm still the secretary who got lucky." If only she knew that while she was planning this elaborate anniversary dinner to remind me of my place, I had been in my office, closing a deal that would save the very legacy she was so proud of. "Mother," James said, a warning note in his voice. "Not tonight." Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be so sensitive, darling. We're all family here." Her smile didn't reach her eyes, though some of us understand the weight of that name better than others. I took a sip of my wine, letting the expensive vintage roll across my tongue. 5 years ago, her words would have cut deep. Now they just made me think of the signed contract sitting in my office safe, and the look that would be on her face tomorrow at the board meeting. "How is the company doing, James?" Eleanor turned to her son. "Your father would be so proud to see you at the helm of Matthews Industries." I washed my husband's face carefully. James was handsome, successful, and completely unaware that his company was on the brink of collapse, or that I had spent the last 6 months secretly working to save it. "Everything's fine, Mother," he replied, but I could see the tension in his jaw. James was a brilliant engineer, but he'd never had his father's head for business. The company had been bleeding money for years, and he'd been too proud to admit it. Eleanor nodded approvingly. "Of course it is. Matthews men always succeed." She turned her attention back to me. "Though I suppose that's hard for some people to understand. Not everyone grows up with business in their blood." Eleanor, my father-in-law's brother, Uncle Robert, cut in. "Perhaps we could discuss something else." But Eleanor was on a roll now, fortified by several glasses of expensive wine. "I'm simply saying that some people might find it difficult to appreciate the pressures of running a family company, especially when their previous experience was mainly answering phones and getting coffee." The table fell silent. I could feel everyone's discomfort. The Matthews family had never quite known how to handle Eleanor's thinly veiled disdain for her son's choice of wife. What none of them knew, what even James didn't know, was that I hadn't just been a secretary at Matthews Industries. I had been working on my MBA at night, studying the company's operations, seeing problems that everyone else seemed to miss. By the time I married James, I understood Matthews Industries better than most of its executives. And for the past 6 months, I had been secretly working to save it from bankruptcy. It started when I accidentally discovered some concerning financial reports in James's home office. The company was hemorrhaging money, losing contracts, and falling behind competitors. James was drowning, but his pride and his mother's expectations kept him from admitting it. Instead of confronting him, I began working behind the scenes. My old network from my secretary days proved invaluable: assistants and receptionists who knew everything that happened in their offices, who were happy to help the former one of them who had married the boss. Through them, I learned about a potential deal with Suntech, a rising star in the tech industry. They needed a manufacturing partner for their new line of products, and Matthews Industries had the facilities they needed. The problem was, no one at Matthews had taken their overtures seriously. Suntech was too new, too different from our traditional clients. But I saw the potential. Using my connections and working through intermediaries, I spent months nurturing the relationship, structuring a deal that would not only save Matthews Industries, but transform it for the modern era. This morning, I had finally closed the deal, $50 million upfront, with the potential for billions in ongoing contracts. Tomorrow at the board meeting, when Suntech's CEO announced the partnership, everything would change. "Sarah?" James's voice pulled me back to the present. "You're very quiet tonight." I smiled at my husband, reaching for his hand under the table. "Just thinking about tomorrow's board meeting." Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "Oh, do you attend those now?" "How progressive of you, James." "Sarah's insight is valuable," James defended, though I could hear the slight uncertainty in his voice. Even after 5 years, his mother's disapproval could still shake his confidence. "I'm sure it is," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Tell me, Sarah, what insights could you possibly offer about running a company that's been in our family for 3 generations?" I met her gaze steadily. "Sometimes a fresh perspective is exactly what a company needs, Eleanor." She laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "Fresh perspective? My dear, you wouldn't know the first thing about running a business of this magnitude. This isn't like organizing the office Christmas party." I felt James tense beside me, but I squeezed his hand, silently asking him to let it go. Tomorrow would bring enough drama without adding to it tonight. "Perhaps you're right," I said smoothly, raising my glass. "To the Matthews legacy." Eleanor smiled triumphantly, clearly taking my response as submission. As she noticed the slight curve of my lips, the quiet confidence in my eyes, she dismissed it as the wishful thinking of a social climber who had married above her station. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of subtle jabs and backhanded compliments. Eleanor held court, reminiscing about the glory days of Matthews Industries, when her husband William had turned it into one of the largest manufacturing companies in the country. "Your father had such vision," she told James. "He could spot an opportunity a mile away. That's the Matthews instinct, something that can't be learned in some community college course." Another pointed look in my direction. I thought about the contracts in my office, about the months of careful negotiation, about the future I had secured for the company while they were all clinging to the past. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. After dinner, as we waited for the valet to bring our car, James pulled me close. "I'm sorry about Mother," he said softly. "You know how she gets." "It's fine," I assured him, straightening his tie. "Nothing she says matters." He studied my face. "You seem different lately. More confident. Like you know something the rest of us don't." I smiled, thinking of the board meeting tomorrow. "Maybe I do. Care to share?" "All in good time," I said, kissing him lightly. "Just promise me you'll be at the board meeting tomorrow. Don't let anything keep you away." He looked puzzled but nodded. "Of course. Though I don't know why it's so important. It's just another quarterly review." If he noticed my slight smile, he didn't mention it. That night, as James slept beside me, I stayed awake, reviewing the events that had led to this moment. I thought about my first day at Matthews Industries, a fresh-faced secretary with an MBA dream. How Eleanor had walked past my desk every morning without so much as a glance in my direction. How James had been different, actually seeing me, appreciating my insights, falling in love with me despite his mother's opposition. I thought about the day I discovered how bad things really were at the company. The shock of seeing the true financial statements, the realization that the company's proud legacy was about to come crashing down. The decision to act, to save not just the company but my husband from the weight of failure. Tomorrow would change everything. The question was, would they be ready for it? My phone buzzed softly. A text from Angela, Suntex CEO. "Everything set for tomorrow. Can't wait to see their faces." I smiled in the darkness. Angela had become more than just a business partner over the months of negotiation. She understood what it was like to be underestimated, to have to prove yourself in a world that had already decided what you were worth. "Get ready for a show," I texted back. The Matthews Industries boardroom was impressive by design. 40 stories up, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, it was meant to intimidate. The massive mahogany table, the leather chairs, the portraits of past CEOs lining the walls. Everything screamed old money, established power. I arrived early, watching the morning sun paint the city gold. The contracts were safely stored in my briefcase, along with a presentation that would change everything. James had already left for his usual morning meetings, completely unaware of what was coming. Eleanor arrived exactly 10 minutes before the meeting was scheduled to begin, wearing her trademark Channel suit and an expression of barely concealed disdain when she saw me. "Sarah, don't tell me you're actually staying for the board meeting." She made it sound like I was planning to crash a private club. "Of course," I replied calmly. "I wouldn't miss it." She sighed dramatically. "Really, James needs to set better boundaries. These meetings are for actual board members and executives, not—" She waved her hand dismissively, "family observers." Before I could respond, the other board members began filing in. I recognized them all. The old guard who had run Matthews Industries with William, who still saw me as the secretary who had somehow snared the boss's son. James arrived last, looking slightly harried. "Sorry, got caught up in the R&D meeting. What's on the agenda for today?" Theodore Wells, the CFO, cleared his throat. Actually, we have some concerning matters to discuss regarding the company's financial position. Before we get to that, I interrupted smoothly, standing up. There's something else that needs to be addressed. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Sarah, dear, this really isn't the time for whatever this is. Actually, Eleanor, this is exactly the time. I moved to the front of the room, pulling out my laptop and connecting it to the display screen. You see, I've been working on something for the past 6 months. Something that's going to change everything for Matthews Industries. The room fell silent as I pulled up the first slide. Charts showing the company's declining revenues, lost contracts, mounting debts, everything they have been trying to hide. What is this? James asked, his voice tight. Sarah, how did you get these numbers? I finished for him. I've always had access to them, James. I've been watching our company slowly die while everyone in this room pretended everything was fine. Eleanor stood up, her face flushed with anger. This is outrageous. You had no right to access these documents. James, are you going to let your wife? Mother. James cut in, staring at the screen. These numbers, are they accurate? Theodore shifted uncomfortably. Yes, we've been trying to find a way to tell you. The situation is quite serious. I clicked to the next slide. 6 months ago, I started working on a solution. Something that would not only save Matthews Industries but transform it for the future. The boardroom door opened and Angela Chen walked in, followed by her executive team. Eleanor's mouth fell open as she recognized the CEO of Sun Tech. Ms. Chen? James stood up, confused. I wasn't aware we had a meeting scheduled. That's because the meeting wasn't with you, James, Angela said, smiling at me. It was with Sarah. I pulled out the contracts from my briefcase. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce that Matthews Industries has just entered into a historic partnership with Sun Tech, a $50 million immediate investment with projected contracts worth billions over the next decade. The room erupted in chaos, board members talking over each other, James staring at me in shock, Eleanor looking like she might faint. This is impossible, Eleanor finally managed. You're just a secretary. You couldn't possibly. Actually, Angela interrupted. Sarah has proven to be one of the most brilliant strategists I've ever worked with. She saw the potential for this partnership months ago, when everyone else was too caught up in the past to see the future. I distributed copies of the contracts. The deal is already signed. Sun Tech gets the manufacturing capability they need, and Matthews Industries gets the innovation and capital it desperately needs. A perfect partnership. James was reading through the contract, his expression a mix of amazement and something else. Pride, maybe. Sarah, this is incredible. But why didn't you tell me? I moved to stand beside him. Because you needed to be protected. If the deal hadn't worked out, if I had failed, no one would have known how close we came to losing everything. Your reputation would have been safe. Protected. Eleanor scoffed, though her voice wavered. You went behind everyone's back, made decisions about our family company. I saved our family company, I corrected her firmly. While you were also busy protecting the Mackeys' legacy, you nearly destroyed it. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see what the insiders are too close to notice. The board members were murmuring amongst themselves, reviewing the contracts with growing excitement. The terms were excellent. I had negotiated from a position of knowledge rather than desperation, creating a deal that would benefit both companies. Angela stepped forward. I'd like to make another announcement. Given Sarah's extraordinary work on this deal and her clear vision for the future, Sun Tech would like to recommend her for a position on the Matthews Industries board. Eleanor made a choking sound. This is absurd. She's not qualified. Actually, Theodore interrupted, looking up from the contracts, looking at what she's accomplished here. I'd say she's more than qualified. This deal, it's brilliant. It saves us from bankruptcy while positioning us for growth we haven't seen in decades. James stood up, taking my hand. I second the nomination. My wife has proven she understands this company better than any of us. One by one, the board members voiced their agreement. Eleanor sat there, her face pale, as her carefully maintained world order crumbled around her. Well, I said, squeezing James's hand, I believe we should vote on it. All in favor? Every hand in the room went up, except Eleanor's. She stared at me, finally seeing me clearly for the first time. How? She whispered. All this time. Because you never bothered to look past what you thought you saw, I replied. You were so convinced I was just a secretary who got lucky that you never noticed I was actually a businesswoman who got smart. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of discussions about integration plans and future strategies. I watched as the old guard of Matthews Industries finally began to understand that their world had changed, and that I had been the one to change it. After the meeting, James pulled me into his office. Why didn't you tell me how bad things were? That the company was nearly bankrupt? I touched his face gently, because I knew you were doing your best. You're brilliant with the technical side, James. But sometimes love means protecting the people we care about while we fix what's broken. He laughed softly. Protect me? Sarah, you saved everything. The company, our future, my family's legacy. You're extraordinary. Does this mean you're not angry I kept it from you? He pulled me close. Angry? I'm in awe of you, and a little bit terrified, if I'm honest. Later that evening, as we were leaving the office, we ran into Eleanor in the lobby. She looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than she had at dinner the night before. Sarah, she said, her voice unusually hesitant. I owe you an apology, many apologies actually. I studied her face, seeing the genuine struggle there. You never gave me a chance, Eleanor. You decided who I was the moment you saw me at that desk. Yes, she admitted. I was wrong. So wrong. What you did today, you didn't just save the company. You protected my son, our family name. You did everything I accuse you of being incapable of doing. The question is, I said quietly, what happens now? She straightened her shoulders, and for a moment I saw the proud Matthews matriarch again. But then she surprised me by smiling, a real smile, not her usual social mask. Now I hope you'll give me the chance to get to know my daughter-in-law. The real one, not the one I imagined. James squeezed my hand. Dinner next week, Mother. Maybe at our house this time. Eleanor nodded. I'd like that. And Sarah, thank you for seeing what needed to be done and having the courage to do it. As we walked to our car, James looked at me with a mix of love and admiration. You know, for someone who claims she married into the Matthews family, he might be the best Matthews of us all. I thought about everything that had led to this moment, the years of dismissal and doubt, the months of secret work, the triumph of today's reveal. But most importantly, I thought about the future we could now build together. I didn't marry into the Matthews family, I said, smiling at my husband. I married you. Everything else was just business. He laughed, pulling me close. Remind me never to play poker with you. As we drove home, my phone buzzed with a message from Angela. Dinner next week. We should discuss phase 2 of the expansion plan. I smiled, thinking of all the possibilities ahead. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing people exactly who you are, and watching them realize how wrong they've been all along.